Good evening, everybody. Good evening, everybody. Thank you. Welcome to this evening's full council. Please can I, as always, remind you to have your mobile phones on silent or switched off. And please do show respect to fellow members or officers or members of the public should they be in this council chamber and wanting to speak. Can I also remind you that local democracy is extremely important, and I know that some people, their minds might be elsewhere this evening. So, if you must be wanting to update yourself on some information that might be coming through, please can I ask that you are discreet. Okay, I don't want to see mobile phones and laptops. I'm a celebrity, apparently. So please, can I just ask you, do be respectful throughout the meeting. Just a few announcements. I have to announce the sad death of former Labour councillor Austin Calvert, who passed away on the 14th of November. He held 3 periods of office between 1979 and 2000, representing Birstall and Berkhamshire. Our condolence, obviously, to Austin's family at this sad time. I'd now like to hand over to Councillor Turner.
Good evening. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to bring to the attention of the Council some really great news. Carol Stump, our Chief Librarian, has been elected to the role of President of Libraries Connected, which was formerly known as the Society of Chief Librarians. So she will take over this role in June next year. This is a membership body that represents the heads of library services in England, Wales and Northern Ireland. And for those of you who don't know Carol as well as I do, Carol has worked in public libraries her entire career. She began as a library assistant after leaving school and worked her way up to become Chief Librarian for Kirklees. Carol has been the chair of the Yorkshire and Humber region, a member of the exec board, and was recruited to the trustee board in June. She also represents Libraries Connected on the Public Library Skills Programme. This ensures that the relevant monitoring, training and development is available to the workforce. This is a truly great achievement for not only Carol but for Kirklees as well, as she's developed her career with us. To be recognised nationally by your peers for your hard work and commitment is always an achievement, as these are the people who really know the amount of hard work and commitment Carol has made nationally to the cause of publicly funded, comprehensive and efficient library services. So congratulations, Carol. Well done. This is really well deserved.
Thank you, Councillor Turner. Our congratulations to Carol. And now I'd like to hand over to Councillor Masood Ahmed.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I want to present the Council with the Silver Award. Kirklees Council have got the Armed Forces Covenant Award as a community for helping veterans and those that have served in the Armed Forces. So I've been working with the Armed Forces Covenant Board for quite some time, and we had the bronze last year. We've now got the silver award, and I'm working with the board members. Some of you may know Jim Dodds is also on the board with me as well, and hopefully we're going to get the gold award next year. And for that, I think we get to go to either Buckingham Palace or 10 Downing Street. Don't know yet where. So I thought that present the sword.
Item 2, any apologies for absence, please? Councillor Patrick?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We've got apologies from Councillors Kath Taylor and Martin Bolt.
Thank you. Councillor Sokol, please.
Madam Mayor, apology from Councillor Edgar Holroyd Dobbiton. Apology from Councillor Fazila Lunet. Not very well. Apology from Councillor Sheikh Ullah. Sheikh had to take his son to hospital, and Halifax Hospital is not very well, his son, so he sent an apology on the last minute. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sokol. Councillor Allison, please.
Apologies from Councillor Cooper.
Thank you. Councillor Burke, please.
Thank you. Councillor Wilson is running late.
Thank you, Councillor Burke. Item 3. I move that the minutes of the meeting of Council held on the 7th of November 2018 be approved as a correct record. Is that seconded?
Second, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Please can we vote by show of hands? And that is carried. Thank you. Item number 4. Members who have any interest should disclose their interests now. Are there any interests to declare? Thank you. Should you realise later that you have, please do complete the form and submit to the clerk before the end of the meeting. Item 5, petitions from members of the Council. Are there any petitions this evening? No, thank you. Item 6, to receive deputations or petitions from members of the public. I believe we have a deputation this evening. Welcome to the meeting. Please can you introduce yourself and the subject matter of your deputation, and you have 5 minutes to present your deputation.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. For those who don't know me, my name is Alex Lukic. I'm here to speak about the petition on non-stunned meat in local schools and the Council's handling of that petition. So thank you for the opportunity to speak at this meeting. Councillors, you will certainly be aware of this petition. It's been one of the fastest growing petitions to be brought before this Council. Over a period of just 2 weeks, the petition attracted the support of approximately 3,000 Kirklees residents. They were joined by 1,000 further subscribers from the rest of West Yorkshire and another 3,000 from the rest of the United Kingdom. On witnessing the degree of support shown in such a short time frame, which eclipsed all my expectations, my hope was that we would be holding a full debate on this petition at this very meeting. I complied with the Council's request to submit the petition before Monday of last week. Despite this, the debate has been delayed until the 16th of January. I will address the substance of the petition with you at that debate, as is proper. But I've come to speak tonight because, unfortunately, this delay is only one area where this Council has been deficient in its handling of both the petition and the issue itself so far. When the issue was first raised by local journalists, there were 2 key actions that Kirklees Council should have taken. This Council should have issued an immediate apology to local families and provided sufficient advice to enable them to make informed choices about school meals going forward. This Council should also have immediately considered supplying alternative choices of meat to those 16 schools where only non-stunned meat is currently served, while evaluating the case for stopping the supply of non-stunned meat altogether. I launched this petition in the first place because this Council did not take either of these important actions, and as far as I know, it still has no plans to do so. Furthermore, I've been dismayed to have to point out that strategic directors who this Council employs on 6-figure salaries really ought to know and respect that when information is requested from the Council, it has a statutory duty to provide it. This Council has no right to refuse to provide local journalists with details of the schools that are serving non-stunned meat, as it has done on several occasions now. This council should consider that its ongoing failure to be transparent with families and the wider public will only cause further anxiety. I have also been concerned with some personal attacks that we have seen already in relation to this issue. The day after the initial report in local attacks only tarnish our local democracy. When a former teacher from a local multi-ethnic school is immediately accused of such things by an elected member of this council, then we have a long way to go to improve our discourse. When citizens raise legitimate concerns, they should receive a considered response on the substance of the issue, rather than flippant accusations of racial or religious hatred. Too many people, too many citizens have already been driven towards the political extremes by this cheap tactic being deployed against them. I hope that from this point onward, we can focus on the issue at hand, and I ask Councillor Pandor to confirm, as the council leader, he does not support that particular allegation against me by a member of his political group. I also ask Councillor Pandor to take this opportunity tonight to apologise on behalf of the council to local families for the mishandling of this issue and confirm that the council will be taking immediate action to provide clear information and alternative choices in schools while this issue is considered further. Thank you all once again for your time this evening, and I look forward to our debate next month on the serving of non-stump-metered local schools, and I'd just also like to wish you all a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr Lukic. Can I ask the Cabinet Member to respond? Councillor Ahmed, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you for your deputation, Mr Lukic. I hope we can all agree in this chamber that we need to offer choice to our children across Kirklees, and that choice takes full account of cultural and religious beliefs. I hope we can also agree in this chamber that the provision of high-quality, nutritious meals to our children is vital in aiding their development and well-being. Madam Mayor, if I could offer some context, Kirklees Council's policy in relation to halal meat was developed in 2006. A comprehensive consultation was undertaken with a variety of stakeholders, which included parents, students, head teachers, school governors, Muslim scholars. The outcome of this consultation led to the Halal Monitoring Committee becoming the accredited body. This was reviewed in 2016. Halal meat meals provided by Kirklees Council's catering services are from Halal Monitoring Committee, accredited abattoir. HMC only consider non-stunned meat to be halal. The HMC endorsement is regarded as the accepted standard amongst Muslim communities, resulting in demand for this status. Indeed, many schools use HMC accredited meat, including other councils in West Yorkshire. There are 196 schools in Kirklees, and we provide a catering service to 167 of them. Of these schools, 42 serve halal meat, 16 of which do not offer non-halal meat alternative, although there are vegetarian and fish options. This is identified clearly on the menus within these schools. We have 26 schools offering both halal alongside non-halal. The halal meat is labelled as such on the counters and served in red dishes, served with different utensils and cooked separately. This approach is endorsed by the Muslim Welfare Society. Madam Mayor, we have been very clear that it is the responsibility of the schools, the community, to communicate with parents and pupils with regard to their specific offer. However, due to the recent media coverage, some of it inaccurate and inflammatory, the Council has provided all schools with draft letters appropriate to the provision to issue to parents, along with a letter to head teachers reminding them of their responsibility to ensure their parents' children can make an informed choice. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Ahmed. Thank you for attending this evening with your deputation. Thank you very much. Thank you. Petitions. Are there any petitions this evening? No? Okay. Thank you. Item number 7, questions by members of the public. Are there any questions by members of the public this evening? It's just falling apart. You didn't stay about. It's just not falling apart. Moving on then, item 8. Page 11, Inclusion and Diversity Annual Report and Revised Strategy Action Plan. Can we have a bit of push, please? Councillor Pandor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, the strategy we've got in front of us is actually a quite important piece of work that we're actually carrying out. And in the context of what's been happening over the last few months and the last couple of years, there's never been a time in our national life when we need to give this work an even sharper focus. Madam Mayor, to be blunt, the issues we're facing are very stark. As a nation, we face growing prejudice, speaking and behaving badly to those who are different from us. These are difficult times, and fundamental rights are being eroded, and people can say what they want without understanding the context and the implications of what they are saying. There's a falling confidence in rights and systems that uphold them, as well as right violations on national and international basis. There are forces across Europe and across the Atlantic that are capitalising on people's fears and security concerns to gain electoral support for their racist, fascist and extreme agendas. Their fierce resistance to integrate newcomers will continue. Their fierce resistance to people who happen to look different will continue. They will use lies, they will use fear, and they will use intimidation. So, Madam Mayor, discrimination is alive and well, and people who look different to you and I face this on a regular basis. Seeking work, when at work, when looking for housing, when seeking education, and when accessing healthcare and basic services that you and I take for granted. Madam Mayor, there are too many people leading parallel lives. The journey for some remains tougher, and it's accepted by many people in power to actually promote the divisions that we see in our daily life. So, Madam Mayor, this administration is committed, and under my leadership, this administration has a duty, but not just a duty, a moral obligation to our communities. And that's why we have put some practical steps in our diversity strategy to actually become a leading exemplar local authority. This is about behaviour change, Madam Mayor. Year 1 of the strategy was around how we actually put some basic stuff within our organisation. Year 2 will be more about looking outward and becoming more visible in terms of what we believe in and what we stand for. Looking at the strategy in detail, there are some clear examples of how we actually become a national exemplar. We want to increase the number of supported internships for students with a learning disability, working with Kirklees College and real employment, and through the use of a process called job carving, which will basically mean creating substantial permanent employment that pay a real living wage. We need to focus on jobs at grade 13 and above. Madam Mayor, our own data shows that we do not have employees who have a disability, we do not have employees who are young, and we do not have employees of a BME background that actually show that they're getting paid on grade 13 and above, which is a shame. Madam Mayor, I'm also planning to include diversity training, and that will start from the very top. The Cabinet will actually go through this training, then the exec team, and we will start to actually mean how we plan to go on. We also plan to expand the commissioning of migration, that we actually have a mentor programme that will deliver volunteers that will help new arrivals settle in to actually become part of the fabric of our community. There's far too many examples we can see on a daily basis, Madam Mayor, and I don't want that to happen anymore. Madam Mayor, this has become a way of how we do things in Kirklees. We have to make sure that this is part of the day job. It's not separate and it's not tokenistic. And it's about how we as a council take this seriously. It's how we as a district take this seriously, and we as the people of Kirklees, how we embrace this agenda. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Panda. Is that seconded? Thank you, Councillor Sheard. Are there any comments on this matter? Councillor Khan, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm delighted to see supported internships for students with learning disabilities as a key priority for next year. And I'd like to congratulate Real Employment for their success in keeping people in work and finding them work. They provide an invaluable service in making sure that people are supported in the right way to stay in employment. And I also welcome the diversity training focused on unconscious bias. There's a huge amount of research in relation to implicit bias and how these subtle biases are widespread and associated with discrimination in our legal, organisational and economic systems. We all have an unconscious bias that we're not aware of. And as a therapist, I go to monthly supervision to uncover those unconscious bias as not to affect my practice with clients. So it's quite a normal, everyday thing, and people shouldn't feel defensive about it, but it's about encouraging our staff to be reflective and see how they can be more inclusive of all kind of minority groups, like, you know, the LGBT community, and in terms of gender and in terms of sexuality and disability. And I'd like to say that I do welcome this approach of having a more self-reflective stance within our council and to examine how we deliver services and what our unconscious biases may be. However, all this in terms of equality also applies to councillors as community leaders. Sometimes we're in danger of being too focused on our own outcome or our own agenda to realise the wider impact on communities. We all have a duty to promote understanding between different groups and promote respectful dialogue wherever we can. Our actions and reactions must always be appropriate, measured and proportionate. As representatives of Kirklees, it is sad and unfortunate that recently there has been a few instances where the impact of individual actions on wider cohesion, in my opinion, hasn't been adequately considered. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Khan. Councillor Smith, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Very briefly, I'm not going to speak at length about this. I support what Councillor Pando and Councillor Khan have said in large parts. Just a plea from me, really. I strongly believe in meritocracy, and I would be very worried if this council was to disadvantage any group of people just in seeking to promote this equality across the board. So I support what you're trying to do, but can we just ensure that we don't disadvantage people by trying to fill any positions with not necessarily the right people for the job, just because they fit a criteria.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Councillor David Hall, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a couple of brief comments. I mean, firstly, it occurs to me that, my goodness, what an awful lot of paper and effort would be saved if just everybody could treat everybody with the same respect to which they are due, without preferment or discrimination. But secondly, just two comments particularly on this that's in front of us. First of all, again, to welcome what's been said about the number of supported internships for students with a learning disability. And I do hope that will result in a lot of people getting permanent careers out of that. It's very, very important. And then a note of concern, which is on page 23. It is down as an area for improvement, so this has been acknowledged by the Cabinet, but it is a little bit shocking to say that there's evidence that employees are being prevented from attending some of the networks to which they could go. And I do hope that will be looked into, perhaps as a matter of priority, because it's certainly something that should be encouraged. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Hall. Councillor Mather, please.
Madam Mayor, I stand to support this policy on inclusion and diversity. I really do think that as Kirklees District Council, we need to lead and influence and be the exemplar. And the only way you can do this is by making sure within this broad category called inclusion and diversity, we don't lose by focusing on groups within groups, so that the only way you can do it is by having a focus and by having targets. That's the only way you know that you have delivered. So can I just take a few minutes to talk about a top 100 employers this year. This employer, on a mystery shopper survey, came out 90% of staff felt that the organisation is run on strong values. 87% of his staff felt valued. 93% would recommend the employer to others. 100% of LGTB staff think it's safe. 100% of LGTB staff trust the leader. 94% of staff feel the organisation invests in them and in their learning and development. 90% of staff feel confident in the leadership. 96% believe that this organisation values diversity. And 97% believe it promotes diversity. And this is a mystery shopper, and I would like to think that we're part of an organisation that would come up trumps. I don't know whether we would or whether we could. So if we just, for example, focused on mental disabilities or mental health. So, for example, BME dementia services. Do we have culturally appropriate services, respite care, day centres, social activities? What do our waiting times look like for care packages? How do we support people with dementia living on their own? What about hard-to-reach communities, or are we just providing tick-box exercises? What about communities within communities? And what about lack of partnership working with different organisations and groups? What about delivering dementia awareness sessions within BME communities, setting up and leading BME dementia workers forums in Kirklees, and having our own dementia champions? And that's what an inclusive and diversity policy should look like. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mather. Councillor Burke, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is an incredibly important piece of work, and I think this strategy has seen a lot of work and improvements throughout, and I'd like to acknowledge the work that's been put in by officers. Commenting on the workforce diversity, we can see a lot has taken place to improve apprenticeships and the focus on apprenticeships, especially around targeted apprenticeships, but also the need to improve that around BME communities and what we're doing to improve our data collection and the work we can do around equality with other groups as well. On the positive and inclusive approach, we need to do a lot more, I think, and this I'm sure will come maybe in year two, and how consideration will be given about raising awareness and about reporting of incidences as well. I think also, which has been mentioned by the leader, training for elected members, and I think that needs to be an important part of what we do going forward.
Thank you, Councillor Burke. Councillor Sheard, please.
Yeah, I'd just like to say one of the things, I was recently looking at the profile of our workforce, and one thing that is very noticeable about the profile is extremely biased towards older people. And that's a result of the non-recruitment because we've been reducing in size. We've been reducing in size year on year and not recruiting. And the quickest way to change the profile of a workforce is by recruiting. And we haven't been recruiting. That causes us real problems. We have got a particularly older workforce at the moment. And I'm just encouraging people who are older to step aside and let some of the young ones have a go. And I think there's I just think that if you look at the workforce, and now people, I know people financially are having to work longer and longer, and people want to work, but it does create great problems. We have got a particularly old workforce in Kirklees, and we need to address it some way. And the only way we're going to change, if we don't recruit, we're not going to change the profile of the council as far as the diversity. So I just make the plea for older people to step aside and let the young ones have a go.
Thank you, Councillor Shears. Councillor Walker, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to speak as well about the proposal for supported internships, which I very strongly support. 2 points. The first one I've already made in the scrutiny review of this policy, which is I welcome the fact that this is initially going to be introduced working with Kirklees College and real employment, but I would like to see it extended in later years to also include other post-16 institutions within Kirklees, because there are other schools and colleges who have young people with disabilities who will face the same barriers and difficulties in terms of seeking employment. My second point is really a bit of a riposte to the point that Councillor Smith raised earlier. I very strongly support the need for a scheme like this to give extra support to youngsters with either learning disabilities or physical disabilities. And I would ask Councillor Smith just to reflect on what happens if this is not put in place. I certainly personally have witnessed some very able and energetic young people who have found it difficult, really, to make the transition from an educational environment into a job. And with the right kind of support, they can become tremendous assets to employers. They have got talents, they have got ambition, they have got energy. If this does not happen, just think about the consequences. I've also seen the other side of this, where young people, even people who are coming out of universities with degrees, can then find it extremely difficult to find employment. They then end up in a really difficult situation where they're dependent on their parents or they're dependent on benefits, when the alternative, with just a little bit of support, is that they can live much happier and fulfilled lives, and they can also make a very valuable contribution to wider society. So I think this is actually a very, very important element of this policy. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Walker. Councillor Lawson, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I won't take long over this. I was pleased to see in this report that we had a wide diversity, if you like, group of people represented, especially those who come to seek safety, the refugees among us. That particularly fits well with the Lib Dem point of view. A point just to pick up from Councillor Khan was about unconscious bias. I think what I'd like to see is that all councillors, all members who are on panels making decisions would also go through the bias issues that lie before them when they're making those decisions. Because too often we go on these panels, we think we know everything, we go, we sit, we decide things that make very, very real impacts on people's lives. So I'd like to see those bias issues brought to the fore and be very explicit about them as well with members before they make those decisions. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lawson. Councillor O'Donovan, please.
Thank you. I just wanted to pick up on the point raised by Councillor Smith around people possibly being disadvantaged. And people might remember Councillor Watson, you asked that very same question a year ago, and Councillor Hill gave a very good answer to that one. And it's not about anybody being disadvantaged, this report. This is completely the opposite of that. This is about levelling a playing field that without this report might not be level for some. And this is about providing opportunity to everybody, certainly not disadvantage anybody. And it's about recognising that certain positions could be filled from people of a minority group or from a disability group or something. And it's making sure that those people who are unrepresented and in a minority group and whose voices aren't heard are able to be heard. Because Chief Exec's doing a fantastic job, but there's nothing to say, I won't say a younger person, Chief Exec. It's not to say that anybody from any demographic or any BME population, whatever you want to term it, couldn't do the job of the Chief Exec or any senior leadership role. So I just want to make sure we were clear on that, because the question was answered very well last year, but I feel it needed answering again this year.
Thank you, Councillor Donovan. Councillor Watson, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm more than happy to support this proposal, this report and so forth, and I think I'd echo a lot of what Councillor Donovan has just said there, in that I think it's very, very important that we do all that we can to provide opportunity for those who may be disadvantaged and so forth. But I would also say that I do think it is important that we're very careful that we don't let that end up with a situation whereby we're not actually recruiting the best people to do the jobs. And therefore, I think we just do need to keep an eye on that as well, effectively echoing the comments of Councillor Smith. I don't think the two are mutually exclusive. I don't think the ability to recruit the best people necessarily means that you won't end up with a diverse workforce. What the best is in any role can be subject to a number of criteria, and so I think we do need to keep an open mind on that. I personally recruit quite a lot of people into my department at work, and I'm always looking for the best person to fill the job, and I think it's fair to say I've got a pretty diverse team there, both in terms of age, sex and so forth. So I'm a real fan of keeping a focus on that principle, that ultimately we do need the best people to run the council and to deliver the services for the people of Kirklees. There's one point that I would actually take issue with in this report, though, and that's at page 1, right at the very beginning. And what it talks about is Kirklees being a place with a diverse set of communities. This constant reference to diverse communities concerns me, because actually I don't think that's very inclusive. What I would prefer that we talk about is the community of Kirklees, and we talk about Kirklees as a community, as a whole. Effectively, we're all in this together, rather than talking about different communities within Kirklees, because I personally feel that that of itself is not very inclusive.
Thank you. Councillor J. Taylor, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to take this in a slightly different direction, if I may, when we're looking at inclusion. And one thing that I think gets neglected quite often is people who have caring responsibilities. And actually, there's no recognition in here about that. You know, having had caring responsibilities, I know how the challenges that places on people. And I'd love to see this council doing something to monitor that, to look at how many people we support. I know we're quite flexible about our working patterns to try and help those people, but on the basis that you only do things that you measure, I'd like to see some inclusion in here that recognises that point, because I think all of us across society increasingly are going to find ourselves in a position where we do have caring responsibilities, or as we get older, get cared for. But I'd like to see some recognition, perhaps, that we need to be inclusive around that as well. And how do we build that into our thoughts and our thinking and our recruitment and our plans? So just an observation from me. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Councillor Stewart Turner, please.
Thank you. I think the officers that have put this policy, well, not policy, the action plan and annual report together have done a wonderful job. It is a very honest reflection of where we are, and that's very helpful to help us move forward. The bit I want to pick up on is touched on by Councillor Hall already. On page 20, it highlights the tremendous contributions made by the Young Employees Network and the BME Employees Network. And that's lovely. And I would like to see that learning from that rolled out to encourage our managers to be confident in letting their staff join the other networks. Because those networks, when we look at this, those networks can add a wonderful extra benefits, added benefit to this council that we probably never thought of before this work started. So, and I do think that does include the Working Carers Network, the LGBT network. So there's lots of networks there which we should be developing more, and I would like to see a lot more support and a lot more confidence in our managers to let their staff be part of those networks. And the other thing is I do think this council needs to have a staff that is representative of the communities that we look after. So I do think it's important that we find the right people from across the whole diverse range of people in our council, so we can be a properly representative council. So that sometimes can be a challenge, making sure we've got the right people to do the right job, has been mentioned. But this action plan also talks about a grow your own type policy, and there's some wonderful opportunities there to train our staff and coach our staff, because when they have the ability to fill those roles, they just need the confidence and a little bit of support to be able to go in those roles and do the job to the best of their ability for benefit of all of us. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stewart-Turner. Councillor Hill, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think, firstly, I'm really pleased that this strategy has come here tonight. And I'd like to echo what the leader began by saying, that actually it's deeply alarming, or it should be deeply alarming, that our tolerance as a society does seem to have slid backwards in recent years. And I don't want to open the can of worms of arguing about why that might be. But I do think that very few people would argue that there is a much more fertile ground now for hatred, for divisive language and behaviour, and indeed for open discrimination. I think there's probably an argument that never went away, but certainly now it seems to be becoming much more socially acceptable, and I think that should concern us all. So I'm really happy that we're having this discussion tonight. I think it sends a really strong message, and I'm particularly happy to see detail of the Migration Welcome Mentor programme. I was hearing from a group in my ward this week about the work they do to combat the very real threat of social isolation and loneliness among those who belong to emerging and new migrant communities. And I think it's really, really important that we carry on hearing from those communities when we're developing our actions as a local authority. Because one of the things that really struck me was how the things that you might think they need are not necessarily what they think they might need. And there's definitely a need for that ongoing dialogue. I'm also really happy to see the zero tolerance of abuse, harassment, bullying and violence in there as well. If we think about the range of things that the Council does, the type of jobs that we do, the type of services we deliver and where, and actually I include councillors in that, it's never just part of the job. There are potentially groups who are much more likely than others to attract that abuse, harassment, bullying and violence, and it's never okay. It's never something that you just have to accept because that's just how the world is. It's absolutely right that we have that zero tolerance approach and that we advertise that we've got that so people don't feel afraid to come forward. And I think Councillor O'Donovan gave a really good explanation, but actually we all want the best person for the job. The issue is if the best person for the job thinks that they shouldn't bother applying because the council doesn't appoint people like me. So I was really pleased to hear what Councillor Mather was saying about the levels of confidence that people have in different areas of the authority. But I think there's always more that we can do and more that we should be doing because the demographic of our borough is always changing, and I see that very much as a positive. But I think to finish, this strategy has really come at a time where I think we all face a choice whether we act or whether we're complicit in the rising levels of intolerance and hatred that unfortunately we are seeing. Because I don't think it's enough any longer to just be quiet and wait for someone else to do it, or just assume that the good ones will win. Because this strategy's purpose is really twofold. I think it delivers and sets out the Council's aims and activities, gives us a framework against which to measure those, and I look forward to more discussions in this chamber about how we've done that, and I think we should rightly hold this strategy to account if it seems as though we're slipping back as an authority. But it also sends a message, because there are those in Kirklees for who inclusion and diversity are dirty words. And one of the hardest speeches that I ever remember having to make in this chamber was in the weeks after the death of Joe Cox. And I think there are those of us here who said time and time again that we would never let that happen again, that we acknowledged how it had happened, we acknowledged that it was a politically motivated act and that that should never happen again, and that we were going to be actors and community leaders in preventing another such occurrence. So I think we all should put our money where our mouth is and support this strategy and make sure that it means something to us, and make sure that we go back to our wards and back to our committees and back to our extra roles in external bodies and we take this strategy with us. And that it's not just something that we nod through tonight, it's something that goes through every single thing that this council does until such time as we adopt the next one. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hill. Councillor A. Pinnock, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This strategy is obviously a good idea. I'd like to talk about some things that appear not to be there, which you could quite conceivably include in inclusiveness and diversity. And the first one is access to services. Everybody in Kirklees should have the same access to the services that are available as everybody else. And this, in some cases, is either difficult or, in extreme cases, non-existent. And I talk as one who represents a ward on the edge of Kirklees, where the communication with Huddersfield is, by public transport at any rate, poor. I think we have to recognise that is an important issue for a lot of people. I mean, I think people from Berkshire would agree with that as well. That's one point when we're looking at how we deliver services. There is another issue which some people have brought up with me from time to time, and that is people who haven't got computers. One of their problems is that when they phone up the council, they're expected to use a computer, and some of them either can't or won't, and I think some of them resent this, particularly if they then told they have to go to the library, which is fine. Libraries are good at that sort of thing, but you don't always have the confidentiality space for somebody to discuss something that is personal. If you've got to go through a third party. Oh yes, Councillor Taylor was talking about our communities. It's very interesting if you look at the different communities in Kirklees that some of them are not very diverse, somehow or other one needs to take account of all of that. The other thing I suppose I would like to see is do the staff who work for Kirklees come from all over Kirklees if they're local residents. And that's not a completely flippant statement, but there have been occasions when people have said to me, "Where's Cleckheaton?" And you know that's I don't think that's on, to be perfectly honest. Finally, I would take issue with Councillor Sheard's comments about the age of the workforce. I don't think it matters how old the workers actually are. If they've been properly trained and if they are doing their job properly, then the public, if they're in public-facing jobs, will appreciate that and enjoy dealing with them. The same is true of a lot of young people as well. It's all a question of training and fitting the people who are doing the job into the job, making sure that they can do it properly. But I don't think their age is part of it. I know what he's saying about changing the age profile of the council workers, but you have to do that with sensitivity, I think, and ensure that those who want to stay on, who will often have skills that sometimes might be quite difficult to replicate, are not deliberately pushed out. So, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pinnock. Councillor Murgatroyd, please.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Earlier you said you didn't want us to obviously mention stuff that's going on in London tonight, but it's hard not to think of Brexit in this context, because obviously Brexit has the potential to be incredibly divisive in terms of our communities, and I think it's important to remember as well, that there are large numbers of people from a European background resident here who've, had kids, who've got kids, who work in here, who've contributed to Kirklees. So I think it's important to engage with this group because they're obviously feeling a lot of insecurity, understandably, at this time, and so we could engage with organisations like the 3 Million campaign. Perhaps, the council could provide legal guidance and assistance when things become clearer. And however we do so, I just think it's very important that we send a strong message as a council that, Kirklees is a welcoming place moving forward, whatever the outcome of Brexit, to our fellow Europeans.
Thank you, Councillor Murgatroyd. Councillor Pandor, right of reply?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a few words. I'm really pleased that we've had a really constructive discussion. A lot of stuff that came out from there. And one of the things we need to do is we don't want to just have a discussion and then go away and this strategy just gets put on a shelf and gathers dust. It needs to be a living document, and that's what we will be judged by with our communities. So I welcome the debate and thanks very much for all the contributions, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Pandor. So, using the councils, please can we vote on the recommendation as moved by Councillor Pandor? Still to press. Yeah. If they're not in the room, that's fine. Yeah, they've just come back and give you a yeah, we've got them. Oh, they're not. Not there, are they? Okay. Yeah. Thank you, that is carried. Thank you. Item 9 on page 31, 2018-2019 Treasury Management Half-Yearly Monitoring Report. Councillor Turner, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It was interesting the council she didn't refer to all councils, and I would have wondered which category I fit into, but we'll have that discussion later. Madam Mayor, thank you. This is the half-yearly monitoring report on Treasury Management. As Council will see, this is quite a long and detailed report into our Treasury Management function and has been prepared in accordance with the SIPFA Code of Practice. Just one thing worth bringing to Cabinet's attention is the proposals for officers to further explore an investment opportunity of between 5 and 10 million in a local property fund. This is subject to further government clarification, if we've got one, and once this has been sought and guidance received, further discussions around this option will be held. Madam Mayor, I move that Council approves the recommendations as set out on page 38, paragraph 6 of this report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Turner. Is that seconded, please? Councillor Pandor?
Madam Mayor, I'd like to second that report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pandor. Are there any comments on this matter? Councillor A. Pinnock, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This matter was discussed at the Audit and Governance Committee, where I was acting as a substitute on that occasion. But this is a subject I find really very interesting. And I would like to refer members to the table on page, I can't remember what it was now, the one that shows the returns for different local authorities, page 42, which is very revealing. And this is income-only return on total investments. And each of those columns is a local authority. And some local authorities are getting huge returns on their investment. And Kirklees, which is the grey bit near the bottom end. Yes, all right. I'm not suggesting for one moment that the council goes to try and beat everybody else on that table. I think what I would like to see is can the council move up the table a bit? Because clearly some local authorities, and I made this point at the Audit and Governance Committee, some local authorities have been doing better in getting returns on their investments. I'm not asking how, but because that's there might be all sorts of reasons for that. But if the local property fund that Councillor Turner made reference to helps us in that direction, albeit slowly, and I'm not suggesting this is going to happen overnight, because it can't. It will take a year or two. But I think we should certainly aim to improve our yield from our investments, given we are still in a time of austerity, despite what some people are saying. If we can get money from legitimately from other sources, then I think we should, because without too much risk. I mean, I've used the word risk. There clearly is risk involved, but the other two words are important as well. Too much. Too much is bad. I just make that point that we should, in the long term, try to aim for higher returns if that's at all possible.
Thank you, Councillor Pinnock. Councillor J. Taylor, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I welcome this report. Just have a couple of comments on it. Under 2.21, which looks at the revised forecast for the balance sheet forecast, I think there's some interesting points made here. Yet again, we have a recognition that our ability to profile adequately our capital plan is still lacking, and this is a point I've been making over the last couple of years. And I am hoping that perhaps this year we'll get a bit better at doing this, because obviously there are opportunities within our budget in terms of use of revenue if we don't get our capital plan right. And it's also reassuring to see that we're forecast to use less of our reserves than perhaps was originally anticipated. So I think that's a good news story and perhaps a bit of a bad news story. And on the bad news story, my point is, I've been banging on about this for a while now. Can we please try and do something about it? Thank you very much, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Councillor D. Hall, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think we ought to send some thanks back to the Treasury Management team, because year after year they're rolling a really good set of results for us, and they do this. And as always, I feel very confident that these professionals we employ to manage our money really know what they're doing, and I'm confident that if we give them the flexibility to do a little more, as is put out in paragraph 6.2 and 6.3, I think we could achieve better returns. And I think, as always, if they can have the flexibility to do what... It's all right coming back to Cabinet and then we come on to Council. But all this is taking months of time. And by the time you've gone through those rigmaroles, you've actually missed the opportunity where you could have made an investment. And I echo Councillor Pinnock's comments, is we don't want to be in with some of these big boys that are investing in all sorts of stuff, and frankly I wouldn't be too happy about the get-rich-quick schemes that we see some councils investing in. But we do need a sufficient return, because when we look at £43 million on average throughout the year that we invest, and the income from that is 120k, I certainly think if I was in the very fortunate and very improbable situation of having £43 million, I would certainly hope I'd be getting more than 120k a year out of it. So I do support those parts of this report.
Thank you, Councillor Hall. Councillor Lawson, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Like previous speakers, I welcome this report. Thanking the team that brought it to us. I'd just like to point out on 2.25 on page 36, we talk about the Local Authorities Property Fund and its current yield, its current gross yield. It then sets up that it's a far greater return than the current council's short-term investments, because the latter are more liquid and have greater security. That has an implication that the former doesn't. So that set me digging. So I went and had a look at the fund. And of course it's a long-term fund. It's a 5-year plus fund. What it doesn't tell me, I even downloaded the key information document. I just got carried away. What it doesn't tell us, though, are what the tie-ins are, how long we need, how much notice we need to give to actually release our funds, what our penalty clauses are, and should things, because it looks as though we could be heading for choppy waters, should things go on the slide. I had a look on the website again, and in 2008 this thing bottomed out. Now it took 8 years to get back to where it started. It's taken to now to get back to where it started. So it's just all of that mix I'd like a little bit of clarity on. And there will be questions when it comes up next. I realise it's not for now, but when that comes round, I think there are some very serious questions to ask about what we're actually locking ourselves into. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lawson. Councillor Sheard, please.
Just continuing with the seasonal consensus that we all seem to be logged into. I mean, I think I agree with everything that everyone said. And even saying that, I just think we've got to remind members that this council once invested money in a supermarket chain, and we were extremely lucky to get 95% of it back after many, many years. And a lot of authorities didn't get the money back. We thought it was a safe investment. So I just think that, yes, I think we all agree we've got to get as much with that balance. And I just think we're thankful of the officers we've got on the way that they are treating it, and the fight that they took to get that money back. And I think we ended up with 95% of it back, which was excellent, because it wasn't predicted we were going to get that back at all. Let's just remind people, yes, it's nice to gamble, but I don't think putting all our reserves on a lottery ticket is a really good idea.
Thank you, Councillor Sheard. Councillor Pandor, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I welcome the contributions made, but just a bit more detail in terms of the return on capital employed. To actually get a better return on our capital that we actually invest in will make us more risky in terms of our investments. But however, I do acknowledge that we are risk averse, and that is something that we actually need to change throughout the organisation, not just in terms of our finances and our capital and our revenue, because there is a lot of things we can do. But the trouble we've had is the last 10 years, there's been uncertainty around local authorities, and over the next few months we will see that the uncertainty is actually increasing. We were due for an announcement last week in terms of what the future landscape would be in terms of our finances. So I accept what everybody's saying, but it's always good to actually look back and say, actually, our return on capital is actually this compared to others. But when actually the muck hits the fan and everybody starts screaming, yeah, then we actually say, actually, that was a good decision. So I accept what we're saying, that we need to actually look at what the trend is. But sometimes, actually just stepping back and seeing what others are doing and then being cautious and prudent works. But having said that, we are looking into this. Another point in terms of the capital plan outturn, that is as a direct result of the capacity that's been taken out of the organisation. We are also now understanding that, and we don't need to put capacity back in. We need staff to actually work with the schemes and deliver on the plan. And that is something that we're actually doing, and that's why I welcome the comments, and I hope that when we come back here in the future with our capital plan, and we've got plans to actually get people in to deliver that, I hope that the council is as enthusiastic in saying, great stuff, let's get behind this and let's start delivering. If you don't have the staff, you can't deliver. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Pandar. Councillor Turner, right of reply.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it, the investment and how much risk you want to take. It's one of those that we've discussed this when we do reserves. There were 69 of us. If we're all here, we'd probably all have a different level of what we would accept as risk. I accept in the past we probably have been a little bit risk averse, but we are dour Yorkshire men, so it goes with the territory. Well, we let it's the interlopers that want to spend our money. We've got it is a balancing act, and we are really seriously looking at whether this capital fund is for us. And we're right, we should get a little bit better increase. But as somebody rightly pointed out, we ain't going to bet the house on this. Sorry. We've got to be careful looking at these figures. The best result is only 4.5%, which is not huge. It's not huge, but the amount of risk I suspect in there is enormous, and that might be fine for some local authorities that have very strong balance sheets and have millions of pounds sat in the bank. Probably down south, we're not in that position to take that level of risk. So it's a balance. We will be working on it with officers, and we'll talk about it. John's right about the capital plan. We've had this discussion many times, John. I can assure you that we're looking at the capital plan at the moment. We'll bring a revised capital plan, part of the budget process, for a 5-year period, and we're going to build into that more flexibility than there has been in the past. But you're right, it is an issue, but we are trying to address that. Sometimes these things do take a little bit of time, and some of these things are historical. Before we accepted any investment, of course, we would look at the T's and C's, as I call it, very, very carefully. There's no point tying up our meagre reserves for a few percent, a small percent increase if we can't get at it should something go wrong. We do have to bear in mind that sometimes, as a local authority, things happen, we have to be able to react quickly. So we do need that guarantee that if something does happen that we need to get our hands in the cash, we can do that. But we would look very closely at that, and I'd have to be happy myself. And I know the Section 151 officer would have to be happy because, of course, he carries a legal camp for these sort of things. I carry the political moral responsibility. He carries the legal responsibility. So we have to agree between ourselves, because at the end of the day, I don't want to see him hauled through the courts. But all those things will be taken into account, and we are going to look at them, and let's see if we can take a bit more risk and invest a little bit more of our money. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Turner. And using your consoles again, please can we vote on the recommendation as moved by Councillor Turner? Thank you. That is carried. Item 10, page 53, 2018-2019 revised gambling policy Statement of principles. Councillor Mather, please. Oh. It's Councillor Patterson. Councillor Patterson, please.
Right, thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, I'm going to move this report from the Licensing and Safety Committee on the revision of the gambling policy. We have an existing gambling policy which is due for to be reviewed and renewed on January 2019. So for 6 weeks in September, October, it went out to consultation for revision, and we've had three interesting comments back which we have included in the revised policy which is here before you. One an extensive one from GamCare, which is a national organisation responsible for looking after the care of gamblers. From the Safeguarding Board, our local Safeguarding Board, which has suggested that there should be occasional spot checks on children and young people in gambling establishments. And then finally, I think perhaps the most important aspect is from Public Health. Public Health have produced local area profiles on many aspects of adult health, and they have produced maps, which we'll find in a lot of maps in the papers today, which show local area risk assessments of various different aspects of health. One of them is gambling, and we are recommending that local area profile, that particular aspect, is taken into account when the Licensing and Safety Committee are considering any licensing application in respect of any gambling activity in the future. This is all, of course, just one of the aspects of the work of licensing and safety and the licensing service, which is all about protection of the public and safety of the public. So I move the recommendation as set out on page 59, paragraph 6 of the report.
Thank you, Councillor Pattison. Is that seconded? Second that report. Thank you, Councillor Allison. Are there any comments on this matter? Councillor D. Hall, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think as this is mostly an update of an existing policy, that's probably why there were few responses to the consultation. But I do think and agree with the fact that it has a little bit more focus on the responsibilities of some licensed premises, particularly with regard to vulnerable people who might be more prone either to become an addict to gambling or to spend money which they really can't afford. But I have a concern just at the back of this, not with the paper itself, but with our response to how we're going to carry this out. And that is that given that a lot of premises are actually staffed a lot of the time by one person, particularly betting shops, not that I'm a frequenter of betting shops, this is what I'm told. How can we be assured or satisfied that any of the responsibilities we're placing on the licensed premises will actually be adhered to? And have we the resources, maybe one of the Cabinet members could tell us, have we the resources in place to make sure that we are satisfied that the licensed premises are carrying out their duties as regards to the new gambling policy?
Thank you, Councillor Hall. Councillor Smage, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. On the local plan part of the document, I do have some concern in that there are no areas of Bristol and Berkshire identified as very high risk. I would want to know far more about and I've asked officers, far more about the scoring and the way they've worked things out, because I am concerned about that conclusion that seems to be drawn from spatial analysis. And I think I would like them to have a look at that in consultation with local councillors and not just spatial analysis. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Smage. Councillor Mather, please.
I just wanted to make sure that the council colleagues have read the report and that we work very closely with the Gambling Act 2005 licence guidelines. And the Act sets out 3 licensing objectives. Firstly, preventing gambling from being a source of crime and disorder, being associated with crime or disorder, or being used to support crime. Secondly, to ensure that gambling is conducted in a fair and open way. And thirdly, protecting children and other vulnerable persons from being harmed or exploited in gambling. Now, the maps that Councillor Patterson mentioned will give us further local intelligence to ensure that there is safety in any gambling premises. And I think, Liz, it's you that just said, somebody said about safety. There are spot checks made. We may not have officers on every premises, but we regularly spot check to ensure that the guidelines are being adhered to. And we also expect members of the public to alert us to any activity that doesn't seem to fall within the gambling licence. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mather. Councillor Lawson, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Again, thanks to officers for the information in this and all the hard work that went in. It's a significant progress. Just need to seek clarity on one or two aspects. I had a look at the joint working of Westminster and Manchester from 2015 that they did with in conjunction with the LGA on gambling, and there's one or two things that stands out. On the heat maps that we have, we've got some dedicated sites, educational premises, community centres, etc. There are some noticeable omissions from the maps that were in, for example, Manchester, and the maps that we have online. I went online for them in the end, because these were all greyed out, there's no colour in them. So the few things that are missing on ours are drug and alcohol treatment centres, gambling anonymous meeting points, homeless accommodation, and national lottery terminals. So if that information is actually wrapped up in there, it would be nice to see where it is. If it's not, have we considered it and disregarded it for some reason? The major difference, though, that I seem to spot was that the division that was made between away-from-home gambling and at-home gambling. There was an overlay of at-home gambling available on the Manchester and the Westminster one, which to my mind gives a fuller picture of gambling activity in our area. Okay, we've not, as an authority, we've not got much control over that, but it doesn't stop us having the fuller picture. It doesn't stop us having the areas that happens in, and perhaps some of the sensitivities that are going on. Now, let's not forget as well that gambling and gaming in the home are drawing ever closer together. So that incremental purchases, incremental wins in gaming are getting more and more close to gambling itself. And that's a pressing issue that we need to really keep an eye on, because otherwise we'll just be feeding from at-home gambling into away-from-home gambling. I think the last point I'd like to ask about, was that we are looking at the fixed odds betting terminals change in April 2019. I'd just like to be assured that we will implement that as soon as possible. Various parties in Parliament have been dedicated for years to try and get those caps changed, and I wouldn't want any further delay as a matter of this council causing that delay. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lawson. Councillor Pattinson, right of reply. Do you know? Sorry, Councillor Patterson, I've got two more people who've just decided to press their buttons. Councillor Khan, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Around 500,000 people a year are affected by gambling, and where we can, we want to minimise harm in relation to gambling. In response to Councillor Smage, public health have a wealth of information about various things like where people live who are more likely to have mental health problems like deprivation and wherever. And it's about layering that information, and it's all based on probabilities. There are generalisations there. Of course, you can't, label everybody in an area. But this is only one. You have to remember this is a very localised aspect of trying to deal with gambling addictions and minimising gambling harm. We do need stronger legislative control, like Councillor Lawson mentioned, gambling, and it's quite worrying that young people are particularly attracted to that, and it's become normalised amongst children to do that gambling, and it's something that parents need to be on the watch out for. And it's very much packaged and hidden and marketed towards children. I'm also pleased to announce that Leeds could be the first location for the North's dedicated NHS clinic for gambling and addictions. I would have preferred that to have obviously been in Kirklees, but we'll settle for Leeds.
Thank you, Councillor Khan. Any more comments? Councillor Pattison, please.
Thank you. Just to a couple of responses, really. As Councillor Mather pointed out, there are the three objectives in terms of gambling licensing objectives, and before anyone is granted a licence to be able to undertake gambling, then they need to demonstrate how those are going to be met. That may be with training, it may be suitability of the premises, and now it will be whether or not they are close to an area of risk, which might include a drug and alcohol addiction centre, for instance. And yes, Councillor Lawson, those have been considered. They may not be on the maps, but that has been considered, and it is known where they will be, and that will be taken into account. And just finally, yes, in terms of the regulations that are coming in April, they are already being considered by the service and the effect that may have.
Thank you, Councillor Pattinson. So, using the consoles, please can we vote on the recommendation as moved by Councillor Pattinson? Thank you. That is carried. 7 p.m, so we will take a 20-minute break. Thank you, members. Item 11. Written questions to the Leader, Cabinet members, chairs of committees and nominated spokespersons. A written schedule of submitted questions has been circulated. I will now invite members to ask their questions in turn, and the appropriate member will respond. One supplementary question to each submitted question is permitted, and can I just remind you that we have 30 minutes in total for this item. First question by Councillor Smith to the Cabinet Member for Economy, Councillor McBride.
Thank you. What has Kirklees done this year or planning to do next year to help retailers in our town centres?
Councillor McBride, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
It's a Kirklees version of what the Romans done for us. What have we done and what do we intend to do? Well, apart from support and encouragement of living in our town, major town centres, Huddersfield and Dewsbury, which so far has created over 500 units of accommodation in the two towns, not to mention significant investments in and around Dewsbury Station, a new Kirklees College completed in the autumn, in the Springfield Centre, plus Pioneer House, which will be completed next year. Therefore, the Dewsbury Learning Quarter will be a £20 million investment, will be with us. We plan refurbishment for the two markets. 2 months ago, we announced a £2.5 million investment in public realm in our main towns. £5 million is going into upgrade of Cross Church Street and King Street in Huddersfield, which will complement Kingsgate 2, which will give us a new cinema. Additionally, we sponsor events such as the Food and Drink Festival, which is the biggest in Yorkshire, the Batley Festival, the Home Firth Folk Festival. In short, there's a limited number of events which we do support because we're strapped for cash at the moment, but we try to help all of our townships. We also have created a £25 million investment fund to act as a catalyst for further private development, and already there is a big ask or a big number of bids on this fund, and the outcomes of that will be announced shortly. I could go on and on. Sufficient to say, this is a glimpse of major initiatives in the two main town centres, more details of which will be rolled out shortly in the two master plans. Also, with the budget, you will see some attempt to invest a little more in our smaller towns, which in the last few years, because of the austerity programme, have been, well, I won't use the word neglected. We have not done as much as we would have wished to do.
Thank you, Councillor McBride. Councillor Smith, do you have a supplementary?
You mentioned the master plans, and obviously we've been promised a town centre plan for some time. Can you give us an update on when we're going to see something of substance?
Councillor McBride.
We're working on the master plan. The point about master plan is not that we wait for a master plan and then we decide to do something. The master plans are unfolding as we speak. Some of the things I've just referred to are part of that master plan. They will, all of them, what I'm referring to, will be encompassed within those proposals and those developments. So what you will see in the next 3 months is a master plan for Dewsbury, and then 3 months later one for Huddersfield. At the moment, they're part of a consultation process. I'm just giving you a glimpse of things that are happening as we speak.
Thank you, Councillor McBride. Question by Councillor Smith to the Cabinet Member for Economy. Councillor McBride.
Could you update Council on plans for the North Kirklees orbital route, including timescales, please?
Councillor McBride, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. At this stage, the North Kirklees orbital is an evaluation of possible routes between the M1 and M62, which will maximise economic benefit to as many parts of the borough as possible. The evaluation needs to be consistent with Transport for the North's wider vision for north, south, east, west links across the north of England. There will be an initial options assessment report in February. It will embrace all possible routes, including the earlier M1-M62 link proposals, which this time will include access and egress within the borough, bringing economic activity to the area. Some of us may remember the original plan, which did not do that. So we'll be evaluating from there.
Thank you, Councillor McBride. Supplementary, Councillor Smith? No supplementary. Thank you. Question by Councillor Smith to the Cabinet Member for Economy. Councillor McBride.
What is your view on the impact of the Cooper Bridge scheme on the B6118 to Grangemore and Barnsley Road through Flockton.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Councillor McBride, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The so-called Cooper Bridge scheme has now been modified to resolve the acute pressures on the junction by a major relief road to ease problems on the A644, sometimes referred to as the Wakefield Road, and Leeds Road A62. Modelling work is not yet complete to fully evaluate its impact. In the short term, it will have a marginal impact on the B6118 to Flockton. Longer term, the impact will depend on the evaluation of the North Kirklees orbital. I did explain this in great detail to a public meeting I held with the people of Flockton about two and a half months ago. It was a very constructive meeting. It would have been very helpful if you would have been there to learn some of this.
Thank you, Councillor McBride. Supplementary, Councillor Smith.
Given the Council's commitment to undertake an assessment on any impact upon Flockton or the B618 at the last Council meeting, I just wonder if when this assessment will actually be made public.
Information as I have, I will keep you updated. I'll keep the Council updated whenever I get information with regard to money becoming available and what the programme will be. Bear in mind, these programmes are part of bid process within West Yorkshire, and we got approval for various different stages of development. I will keep the Council fully informed, I assure you.
Thank you, Councillor McBride. Question by Councillor J Taylor to the spokesperson for WYCA Transport Committee, Councillor Kushik.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Can the member tell me what work is or has been done to promote, improve and enhance passenger access and uptake to the stations in the Kirkburton ward on the Penistone line, given that this is Kirklees' sole rail access to the key South Yorkshire connections at Barnsley and Sheffield, and in preparation for HS2?
Thank you. Councillor Kushik, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillor Taylor. Kirklees Council continue to work with the West Yorkshire Combined Authority, South Yorkshire Passenger Transport Executive and Barnsley Council to secure service improvement to the Penistone line. In recent months, meetings have taken place between relevant officers and members to help identify what needs to be done to improve the quality and frequency of trains on the line. A strong case for improvement to the line has been made as part of the process for developing the transport for the North Strategic Transport Plan and the Strategic Development Corridor work that support this. This work has been ongoing since summer. The Penistone line feature in the Southern Pennines Strategic Development Corridor study. Increasing the frequency of trains to every 30 minutes and a reduction in journey times has been tested. A good overall case for investment has been identified through this work. West Yorkshire Combined Authority and South Yorkshire Passenger Transport Executive expect to jointly commission work early in 2019 to establish exactly what would be required to square these improvements. Madam Mayor, key issues are that the line was heavily rationalised by removing the second track in many places in the 1980s and increased traffic around Sheffield Station. Platforms along much of the line will be extended in 2019 in preparation for different trains which will accommodate more passengers. These trains will replace pacers before the end of 2019 on the line. This will help accommodate the ongoing success of the line in the short term. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Supplementary, Councillor Taylor?
No.
No, it's been advised no, sorry. So, supplementary, Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I raised this question today and I'm thankful for your response. You mentioned that members were involved in some of the discussions, but I'm unaware of any involvement from any members from the ward. So I'm not sure which members you were referring to. But more importantly, my reason for raising this is I've been looking at what West Yorkshire Combined Authority has been doing, and I've been looking at the corridor prioritisation and assessment for the Leeds City region Transforming Cities Fund. And they identified 5 corridors: Leeds to Bradford, Halifax and Calder Valley, Wakefield and Barnsley to Leeds, the 5 towns to Leeds, and then Bradford City Centre to North Kirklees. There is no mention of Huddersfield, there's no mention of South Yorkshire, other than the suggestion that Barnsley will go through to Wakefield up to Leeds rather than use the Penistone line. My concern is that, once again, as an authority, we are not punching our weight. And when you look at this and when you look at the map, you can see everything is focused on Bradford and Leeds, and there is no real detailed consideration of Kirklees. And we are failing as an authority to punch our weight and represent the needs of our residents. And I'd appreciate a response to that. Thank you.
Yeah, Councillor Cushing.
Councillor McBride is ready to answer this question.
That's fine. Councillor McBride, please.
I share your concern about the Penistone line, but the programme you refer to is a road priority scheme, and its movement with regard to the new version of what might well be or possibly could be Supertram. Now, we have said what our priority routes would be. With regard to the Penistone line, we have ensured, and I say we, that includes all members of the Combined Authority, the Transport Committee, have emphasised the importance of the Penistone line. That includes Councillor Bowles, Councillor Pinnock used to very strongly emphasise it, Councillor Firth and Manisha did as well. Councillor Walker and myself went to see Barnsley to jointly lobby both South Yorkshire and West Yorkshire for the prioritisation of this line. So believe me, there is a deep concern, and then we will certainly commit to ensure that this line gets priority. Because I remember when they originally drew up the transport plan, they had a map of all the rail lines and so on, which didn't include the Penistone line. And it was me that pointed out that what's with this. Not only do you not give it priority, you don't even recognise it exists. Believe me, they know it exists now.
Thank you, Councillor McBride. Question by Councillor A. Pinnock to the Leader of the Council, Councillor Pandor.
How will a Brexit deal, or no deal, impact on the Council and local people?
Thank you. Councillor Pandor, please.
Thank you, Councillor Pinnock, for that question. Let's be clear, a no deal is going to be bad, not just for Kirklees, but for the whole of the country. There's a cross-party departmental working group that's working on the situation, but the problem we have is we don't know what scenario will come out. And if anybody can enlighten me on what might come out, I'm willing to listen. The situation is very, very complicated, Madam Mayor. Not least that this week there was a vote that was going to take place. That didn't take place. Last night we heard that there was 48 MPs that actually have signed a letter of no confidence. That will actually play out this evening. And to make matters worse, local government actually is in a situation where we've been actually kept completely in the dark. The LGA has been lobbying very, very hardly on a cross-party basis to find out what is going on. We've heard, off the record, the worst kept secret going, that there's regional impact statements that have been made in terms of what it means for each of the city regions nationally. Today, we haven't actually heard anything formal. So there's a lot of work that's going on in the background, allegedly, but what that is and what that means, we don't know. But having said that, our officers are working on plans to make sure that we actually come out of it in one piece. So our focus has been to actually work on plans that will have an impact locally. The corporate risk register is actually on red alert in terms of what it means for our businesses, the economic uncertainty, and last night or the night before we saw the pound drop. That will mean big implications for our local businesses. We are a manufacturing centre. A lot of that stuff we actually import abroad. Uncertainty around migration. We have a workforce that we rely on. We rely on Europe to keep our local economy going, and that's actually in dire straits. The health service, to name but a few. And the biggest risk I face, Madam Mayor, is the risk about community tensions, because this has actually amplified the divisions that we see in our communities across Kirklees and the rest of the country. The Combined Authority, the LEP and the Yorkshire leaders meet on a regular basis to try and make sense out of the complications and the stuff that's coming out. But what we need to focus on, and I hope that we can work on this as a cross-party council, that how we build resilience within our local communities. Because post-Brexit, whatever deal or no deal comes out, there will be pieces to put together. There will be a jigsaw that will be actually thrown up in the air, and we need to put that together very, very quickly. And on that basis, there's plans that are being developed, and as soon as we know, what I propose is we actually get together as elected members and just understand what that means. Madam Mayor, these are times that are completely unprecedented. I've never known a situation like this. The crisis is so bad that confidence in local democracy is actually being eroded, and it's that big risk of what's happening in Parliament. And that's across the political spectrum. I think everybody will agree that things are happening that we don't know the situation. People's jobs and living standards are at risk. And it's time for cool heads and reasoned voices. And I hope that we can get this from this council chamber, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pandor. Supplementary, Councillor Pinnock.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to thank the leader for his comprehensive answer. Given the circumstances, it's understandable that he can't give me or us any detailed information, because it's and trying to make a risk assessment on the basis of what we know or don't know or think we know is actually rather difficult. But would he agree with me that it's time for a people's vote?
Councillor Pandor, please.
Madam Mayor, I'm not going to go into the rights and wrongs of should we have a vote or not have a vote, because I think they're the mess in Parliament, and that they have been elected, and I hope that they will come out with a plan, a solution, and if they want anything from our book, because I think in this council chamber, one thing I can say is we worked on a cross-party basis, and I think what we could do is actually teach them a lesson or two in terms of how to work on a cross-party basis, get some agreement. It's a bit like Donald Rumsfeld when he says there's no knowns, no unknowns, and unknown knowns. And on that basis, right, I'm not going to speculate anything, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Pandor. Next question, Councillor A. Pinnock to the Leader of the Council, Councillor Pandor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Is the Leader of the Council satisfied that Kirklees will retain good rail connectivity with the rest of the country, given that proposed infrastructure projects have been either cancelled or postponed, maybe, or cut back?
Thank you. Councillor Pandor, please.
Thank you, Councillor Pinnock, for that question. Kirklees, as a local authority, is well connected, because we're in the heart of the country. we've got the East Coast Main Line, we've got the motorway networks. So from that point of view, Madam Mayor, we want to make sure that people and local businesses and nationally people understand that, because that is a strong asset that we have. But I think the crux of the matter is that over time there's been an unfair allocation of resources. There's a very clear north-south divide in terms of the amount of per capita investment that's generated down south compared to what we get up north. It is actually a massive question. There is clearly unfairness in the allocation of resources. I've not had any official notification of any cancellation of the investment that's going to come through. But one thing I do know, that there's £3 billion investment that is planned for our part of the region. £1 billion of that will be actually coming to Kirklees. So we need to actually celebrate that and make sure that that's used properly. And we need to make sure that, you know, the connectivity that you talk about is actually enhanced. The reliability and the resilience is built within that East Coast, West East Mainline Trans-Pennine route. And accessibility is a key thing, because just this week I actually met with a group of concerned rail users towards Marsden, and Marsden Station, I was actually quite gobsmacked, Madam Mayor, it's a technical term, to hear that the access platform is about a foot. And I thought, wow, this is the 21st century, and we have train users that can't access trains. So there's some big questions that we need to ask. But I'm confident that this £1 billion that's going to come in will start to address some of the inequalities in terms of access. So I'm confident, Madam Mayor, that our officers will continue to talk to Transport for the North. The Combined Authority is actually working on this, and Network Rail is actually listening to us. And I hope that the government, once they sort out the issues on Brexit, will start to put this back as a priority, and then we can start doing stuff that we need and our residents are crying out for.
Thank you, Councillor Pandor. Supplementary, Councillor Pinnock.
Thank you very much indeed for your answer. Given that there is this huge disparity to which you made reference between the north and the south, and one has only got to recall the recent news about Crossrail and the overrun and how much more money they want, the sort of money that would, you know, is actually eye-watering, would do wonders for the rail system in the north. Do you have any hope that something like that will happen in our lifetimes? Because I'm really concerned that Kirklees is still open for business, and which is something that we've been proclaiming for quite some time. And not that the connectivity is poor at the moment, but it needs to be better.
Councillor Pandor.
Thank you. I completely agree with you. I remain hopeful all the time, and what I don't want to do is be in a situation where we actually underrate the connectivity at the moment. But to actually get it to where we want it to be, there needs to be a major investment. I only heard the other day that the overrun on Crossrail and the work they're doing down south, the deficit is £2 billion, Madam Mayor. Now that £2 billion is two-thirds of what we require here, and £1 billion of that is what we're asking for. And I was astonished that £2 billion overrun. How are they managing their projects? You know, it's sort of like completely, you know, actually completely outrageous. But to go to the point, in terms of investment up north, in my lifetime, I'm a bit younger than you, so it might happen, but I will be knocking on the door of the Combined Authority, Transport for the North, and the government, and we may succeed.
Thank you, Councillor Pandor. Question by Councillor Andrew Pinnock to the Cabinet Member for Communities and Environment, Councillor Mather. Councillor Pinnock.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Does the Council's waste disposal contractor ship recycled waste materials to other countries? And if so, what are they and to which countries?
Thank you. Councillor Mather, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you. I have on my sheet Councillor Eastwood asking me this question, but Andrew, I'm okay to... Okay, all right. Well, what I was going to say is it's a good question, a big issue, and going forward, I'm hoping to ask scrutiny in due course to look into the subject area. In relation to the destinations, the destination of materials change over time to reflect changes in demand and other factors. For instance, our major contractor here is Suez, has not sent any material to China from Kirklees or other areas since 2017 and is instead trading into other markets in the UK, EU and Far East. However, Suez closely scrutinises its trading partners. Excuse me? I don't know. Trading partners to ensure that material is handled carefully, compliantly, regardless of destination. There is a clear audit, and I think, Andrew, you know, audit trail from the moment the waste is collected from households to the end destination and the user, and this is reported centrally into government database that is made publicly available. All the black bag or residual waste from Kirklees is treated by Suez in the United Kingdom, the majority of which is treated at the energy from waste facility in Huddersfield, where it is turned into energy for the national grid. Any material that cannot be treated at the energy from waste plant, for example, when it has planned maintenance, is treated at energy from waste plants in the north of England. Waste will be landfilled only where there are no or other further options for the material. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mather. Supplementary, Councillor Pinnock.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you for the answer to that question. My supplementary is perhaps a little bit complicated. I've written down here, if no, the answer to the first question, what do the contractors do with the waste streams? And then, if yes, is the Council prepared for the possible revocation of licences for waste going to or through EU countries after the Brexit date?
Thank you, Councillor Pinnock. Councillor Mather, please.
Oh, yes. So I'm looking at the unknowns, not knowing, and the unknowns. There's certain knowns and those that I don't know, I can't see. Anyway, currently we are, as you know, negotiating the end of the PFI contract and renegotiating going forward. In relation to where else could it go, we are looking at all the options are on the table, and when we know, I will make sure that my councillor colleagues know this. At the moment, we are looking at the options, watching the window about the Brexit drama, and then making sure we move forward with a bit of certainty.
Thank you, Councillor Mather. Can I advise everyone that the allocated time for this item has now concluded? Has that been seconded? All those in favour, show of hands. Okay, folks, we'll carry on with the questions. Next question is by Councillor Armour to the Leader of the Council, Councillor Pandor. Can we just have a little bit of hush, please, as well, while people are talking? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Previous practice regarding written questions which have not been responded to in Council due to time constraints, and I'm aware of the irony of being allowed to ask this now, has been to email a response to the questioner, copied to all councillors, shortly after the relevant meeting. Why has this practice been abandoned without prior notice?
Thank you, Councillor Armour. Councillor Pandor, please.
Thank you, Councillor Armour, for that question. The process for dealing with written questions is enshrined in Council Procedure Rule 1218 to be precise, which actually states where written questions are not addressed within the above timescales, then the question will be referred to the next relevant Cabinet, Committee, Subcommittee, panel meeting for reply. So that's what the Constitution says. So that's what we've been doing. Only time we will take the questions and send a written reply is if that has been asked for in this council chamber within 7 days. So what we have been doing is following the council procedure rules, and so we haven't been doing anything that's untoward.
Thank you, Councillor Pandor. Councillor Armour, do you have a supplementary?
We've got it. With great respect, Councillor, I deliberately didn't ask what policy was. I asked about practice. And the practice in the past, in my experience, has been to provide these answers. Could you please comment on why the practice has changed? Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Pandor, please.
Councillor Eber, I'm not going to start a debate with you, but I think you have got a valid point, and what we will do is we will try and accommodate practice where we can. And you make a valid point. And to be honest with you, it's probably easier and neater as well from a practical point of view. So thanks for bringing that to our attention. We are aware of it, and we are listening, and I take on board what you're saying. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Pandor. Question by Councillor Bellamy to the spokesperson for WYCA Transport Committee, Councillor Kosik.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Given the continuing problems for public transport users in Kirklees and the Colne Valley in particular, will you call a meeting of the Kirklees District Consultation Subcommittee to discuss these matters and ensure that in order to have a full and frank discussion, all partners are invited? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bellamy. Councillor Kosik, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We have already one meeting a few weeks ago, which Councillor Walker, Councillor Firth, Councillor Sokol, they attended. And there is another meeting coming in February. So anyone wants to attend, they are more than welcome to attend, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Bellamy, supplementary.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Can I suggest then that you send invites to other members and those partners as well?
Councillor Kosik.
Yes, Madam Mayor. The invites are always sent, but I don't know whether you check your email or not. But it's always, everybody get the invites. So thank you.
Thank you. Question by Councillor J. Taylor to the Cabinet Member for Economic, Councillor McBride.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Would Councillor McBride like to join me in welcoming the government's support for the High Street with the reduction in business rates by 1/3 for retail properties for 2 years?
Thank you. Councillor McBride, please.
The short answer is no, but I think you deserve the long answer. I certainly don't welcome an initiative to help some retailers by a subsidy at the expense of councils expected to increasingly to live off their business rates. Now, the government claim they will offset this by a grant, but previous experience leads me to doubt it. What's more, recent surveys suggest it's rents that are having a bigger impact on retailers rather than rates. Now, it's typical of this government to kick problems up the road with short-term ineffective measures, when the real problem is that in towns our retailers are handicapped by competition from internet providers who earn fortunes in Britain but pay virtually no tax, and in the process totally distort the market, so it's an uneven playing field.
Thank you, Councillor McBride. Supplementary, Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I thank you for your response. I don't necessarily agree with all of it, but I do share your concerns around the role played by internet companies and online sales. The Chancellor also announced a pot of £657 million to manage some of those pressures on high streets. And I was just wondering, that will have to be bid for. I'm just wondering if he can perhaps expand on what schemes we have ready to go once the criteria is clearer about the bidding process.
Thank you. Councillor McBride, please.
That money was to offset the costs to local authority of the subsidy that the government had granted to them at our expense.
No, you've had your two questions. Question by Councillor J. Taylor to the Cabinet Member for Economy, Councillor McBride.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Market stall holders, like retail shop owners, are finding times tough. Could Councillor McBride update the Council on its plans for markets and when the details regarding the consultant-led assessment of Dewsbury Market will be made available to members?
Councillor McBride, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Consultants have... So if I can answer this question and the question from Councillor Idle at the same time. You asked a question about Huddersfield and this is about Dewsbury. Consultants have concluded the principles for future development of markets. In short, they say Dewsbury Market should be smaller, with more distinct offering, and that there should be an enclosed space with coffee bar and food offering. They've then produced a range of options for the use of the additional space. This has been presented to stakeholders as optional choices. All I can say, the outcome will result in a substantial reinstatement. I know that's not a fully satisfying answer. It isn't to me. I want to see action taken a lot quicker. With regard to the Huddersfield Market, it will be even longer term. We are waiting the outcome of a determination of an investment in the centre of the town. This is the answer to you, Councillor Idle. Ultimately, we will refurbish the outdoor market, but what the impact on the indoor market, at this stage, I'm not sure. It depends on an investment in that centre, which will relate to the library, and what we might do about museums and what we might do about the art gallery. Again, I share with you a frustration waiting for the outcome of where we're ultimately going to go on this. We are currently in consultation. I will assure you, I am concerned that we do this speedily, because I can see the impact currently on the market.
Thank you, Councillor McBride. Supplementary, Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you for your response, and I agree with you. When you talked about stakeholders, I assume members will be involved in that as well. And it would be nice, my question was, when will the information be made available to members? And that, I'm not sure you quite really answered that. My broader point about markets, and particularly the discussion we had about Huddersfield, is what is lacking at the moment, and I think my colleague made the point earlier on, is we don't have a coherent vision or plan so people can see what is planned for Huddersfield and what is planned for Dewsbury. There are a lot of schemes, I'm aware of a lot of them, but at the moment we haven't got anything that shows what our ambition and our vision is. And as a consequence, there are people that are moving into that vacuum and trying to make assumptions which may or may not be right, which may or may not be wrong. And the longer this council continues to not share what their vision is for the future of our town centres, the longer we are going to struggle with this, and the longer we're going to see headlines in papers that are negative, and the longer the negative view of our town centres will continue. We need to be able to articulate what our narrative is, what our ambition is, what our vision for the town centres are, and we have not done that, and we've been talking about doing that for over a year now. Can he tell us when we will actually get something in writing that people can see and can understand?
Councillor McBride, please.
I've given you an answer already. You will see something more with regard to Dewsbury in the spring and a lot in the summer with regard to Huddersfield. What you've tried to do is widen the issue beyond the markets to the overall development of town. In the answer to the first question, I did illustrate how these things are evolving over a period. So I'm answering your question in that sense. The master plan will not suddenly say, we didn't have a solution, now suddenly we have and everything's going to happen. It does not work like that. It gives you an overall picture of what is happening, what is current, and what will be developing into the future. With regard to the market, I can say, in principle, some things will happen and which will not. The markets will be smaller. There will be a concentration of provision in the open market in Huddersfield, and there will be a major refurbishment in Dewsbury. As I say, the consultation is currently taking place with members in Dewsbury and with the retailers and all the people who are directly involved. So there's no question of not informing the public, not involving or informing the stakeholders. We've been completely open about this.
Thank you, Councillor McBride. Question by Councillor Watson to the Cabinet Member for Children, Councillor Kendry. Councillor Watson, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillor Kendrick, fostering children is a vocation which can be both rewarding and challenging, and it's understandable that it may not be for everyone. I've seen reports that suggest that Kirklees is struggling to fill a hole in foster care provision and is spending increasing amounts on agency carers because of the inability to recruit carers. How many Kirklees children are currently placed in foster care? And of those, how many are placed with Kirklees Council foster carers, and how many are with out-of-area agency or with agency carers?
Thank you. Councillor Kendrick, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Watson. I think it's a really important question you raise, and should be of great concern to every single person in this chamber. Recruiting foster carers is both a local, Kirklees, and national challenge. The National Fostering Network has highlighted that a child comes into care in need of a foster family every 20 minutes. Every 20 minutes. That's staggering. It still staggers me, though I've known that for quite a while. Over 7,000 new families will be needed nationally to ensure that there are appropriate placements available in the next 12 months alone. 7,000 more in the next 12 months. And because of that, the National Fostering Network has called on government to commit to a national campaign for more people to come forward as foster carers. As for recruitment, we use a range of methods. We currently have 30 prospective carers on the recruitment pathway, and at an event on the 4th of December at the John Smith Stadium, 21 further prospective carers came forward and will be invited to go on that pathway. Your point about Kirklees spending increasing amounts on agency carers is incorrect. That number is reducing. So let's get down to the numbers now. Numbers of foster placements as at October 2018. Internal Kirklees Council mainstream foster placements, 211. For those of you who are older, I feel like I'm doing the football pools, but you know. Kirklees children in care placed with connected people, and that means often a relative, a grandparent, an auntie, brother or adult brother, sister, or even a close family friend, 99. The total independent agency fostering placements, 157. Children placed outside of Kirklees district currently are 107 children and young people, either in specialist residential placements, because that's what needs to be provided for them, or with agency foster carers.
Thank you, Councillor Kendrick. Councillor Watson, supplementary.
Thank you very much for that comprehensive answer. Again, I agree entirely, and part of the reason that I raise this here is to keep the profile of it high. And I understand there's two other things that I've seen recently that might be impacting. The first was a suggestion that the recent child abuse scandals in this area have caused people to be reluctant. Is there any evidence of that having an impact? And secondly, I understand there is a scheme going called 25-25. Is it worth mentioning that?
Thank you, Councillor Kendrick.
The only place that I've seen anything about CSE issues affecting potential foster carers is in the Examiner. Nowhere else. I can't help it if there are inaccuracies reported. There is a current scheme, a challenge to have 25 new foster carers by the 25th of December. And I think we're well on the way to that, with the 30 people who are going through the recruitment pathway that can take up to 6 months. It's a very rigorous process, but 21 other people who only, a week ago, 2 weeks ago, have expressed an interest on that pathway.
Thank you, Councillor Kendrick. Question by Councillor Watson to the Cabinet Member for Children. Councillor Kendrick.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Again, it's following the same theme, just to keep this topic of conversation going. Could I possibly trouble you to tell us what the weekly cost of a Kirklees foster child is with a Kirklees carer, and the cost of placing a child with an agency or an out-of-area carer?
Thank you. Councillor Kendrick.
Thank you. The fees do depend on the age of a child and also what presenting needs a child may have. And there are other factors that affect the cost of a Kirklees foster placement, because, of course, it's about the staff that we use in terms of setting up those placements, care recruitment, staff accommodation and so on. The agency fee, however, is inclusive of their profit margin and other costs, but they do make other costs to the council, because where a child is placed out of Kirklees, the social worker and the reviewing officer still have to visit, so regardless of where they are. So here it gets complicated. The average weekly cost for 2018-19 in Kirklees fostering £366. That's the average weekly cost, and that excludes any operational costs or overheads. If you do that same figure in Kirklees fostering, including operational costs and overheads, it's £605 on average. For an agency, it is £746, and if you include operational costs and overheads, because we have to do those visits out of area, it's £780.
Thank you, Councillor Kendrick. Supplementary, Councillor Watson.
Again, thank you, Councillor Kendrick, for that very useful information. It's stating the obvious to say that it's obviously more efficient. We all know that to place children within the area. I remember years back when we signed up to do fostering. I don't think we ever I think we went to the council rather than being aware of. We had to search it out. And my concern at the moment is, if I look around the people that I know in Denby Dale and so forth, I don't think there's a great deal of sort of high-profile. I know there's adverts occasionally in the press and things like that, but I'm not seeing a great deal that's selling the advantages of it. And I just wonder, therefore, and it's not intended to be a criticism anyway, it's supposed to be a positive comment, whether there might be more that we can do, fairly simply, whether perhaps there could be some, what you might call an elevator pitch that could be distributed to people to really hit home what some of the benefits of fostering might be, and something that we could put in local publicity and things like that. I just feel that there's not a lot of information landing in our area and for people to see the benefits, and I wonder whether we could do a bit more with that.
Thank you. Councillor Kendrick, please.
Thank you, Councillor Watson. I think there are always more that we can do. Certainly one of the best forms of recruitment we have are our own fostering parents. The foster carers network within Kirklees is very strong and works very closely with us, and they do join in a range of roadshows, and actually they get really good results from that. I do think there is a role for all you people sat here. Are you talking about fostering? What's available? If you don't know how to do it or who to contact, drop me a line. You know, because that does help. And, you know, we all talk about being corporate parents. Well, let's get out there and find some more foster carers. But I think we do need, and I think you're absolutely right, Councillor Watson, we do need to look at as many different methods and to actually probably invest a bit of money. Sorry, Graham, don't faint. A bit of money in how we promote fostering within Kirklees.
Thank you, Councillor Kendrick. Question by Councillor Watson to the Cabinet Member for Communities and Environment, Councillor Mather. Councillor Watson, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I've recently purchased a small trailer off eBay, which means I can take rubbish to Bromley Farm Tip and avoid messing up the inside of the car. But I'm told I can only use it 12 times per year. Why is that?
Councillor Mather, please.
Madam Mayor, Councillor Watson, I'm standing here thinking you must be having a laugh, as I've been asked this question several times in this chamber, and in this case, in order not to waste time, I've asked governance to check the rules regarding how many times the same questions can be asked. But on this occasion, I am going to give you an answer. The Council has had a permit system in place for our household waste sites since 2003, and this was last refreshed 2 years ago in 2016. The permit system places some restrictions on usage of the sites, which are designed to ensure our Kirklees residents can access our sites, and our residents are not subsidising commercial activities, hence the 12 times a year. And if anybody is requiring more than 12 times a year, I'd like to know the reasons why.
Thank you, Councillor Mather. Supplementary, Councillor Watson.
I'm not sure that really answers the question, because the question was why.
Can we have a bit of hush, please?
You know, when you talk about Kirklees residents accessing the site and everything, I'm going to access the site the same number of times. I'm going to take the same amount of rubbish. All it means is that after the 12th time, I'll have to tip it in the back of the car and clean the car out afterwards, which seems a complete nonsense because it's not affecting at all the number of times that I use the tip and the amount of stuff that I take. It just makes it a darn sight more inconvenient for me and other council taxpayers, and is therefore a very, very poor service. Do you not agree that that is a poor service?
Councillor Mather, please.
I don't agree it's a poor service. I think it's safeguarding our residents and their taxpayers' money. I think that if anybody is using it more than 12 times, they can actually, if they're helping neighbours, there is a service where you can access the sites. I think it's a very good service. We haven't had many complaints. We are in an era where there are finite resources and we've had to make savings, and this was one way of doing it. So it's a matter of opinion, and it's your opinion that we're not fulfilling our function. I believe we are. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mather. Question by Councillor Watson to the Cabinet Member for Communities and Environment, Councillor Mather. Councillor Watson, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is actually a question to the Leader of the Council, and that's acknowledged at the end of the question, where it says the Leader of the Council to respond. Now, I've made this point a number of times before, that if I put a question to the Leader, that question goes to the Leader, who may then delegate. So this is a question for Councillor Pandor. As I say, concerns have been raised with me by a resident of Upper Cumberworth as to the provision of refuse services over the Christmas period in the following terms, and I'm just going to give you a direct quote. I write to you in astonishment regarding the appalling lack of service over the Christmas period. After receiving an email alert yesterday, I checked the council website and discovered that there will be no black bin collection after 11th of December until 4th of January, an extra 10 days on top of the usual 2-week period. This is at a time when the majority of people, I would imagine, produce more waste than usual. Contrast this to Leeds, where we used to live, where collections are either only 1 day earlier or later, with collections occurring on the Sundays to keep up during the holiday period. In Leeds, of course, there is a weekly food waste collection, regardless of whether it is green or black bin week. As I have previously raised, a far greater variety of items can be placed in green bins, and brown bin garden waste collections occur over the spring to autumn period. Neighbouring Barnsley and Calderdale also seem to have a much more up-to-date service. Why is the Kirklees waste collection service, and I use the term loosely, so backward? Please can you advise what we should do with an extra 10 days' worth of potentially very smelly food waste, which is likely to attract unwanted attention from cats, foxes, mice and rats? Will extra bags left with the bin be collected? And are there any plans to improve and modernise the service? And if not, why not?
Councillor Pandor, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's really great that you want me to stand up and answer this question. But what I'm going to do, my Cabinet member, who's got expert knowledge in this subject, Councillor Naheed Mather. Thank you.
Sir, I'm standing here being told about other places that cost an arm and a leg over our contract, which happens to be one of the cheapest, if not in the north, nationally. I am very proud of the service. We're not backward looking, and it's for those reasons all the information regarding the Christmas break is on our website via my Kirklees account. We had hoped that by releasing Christmas bin collection details as early as possible, it will allow households time to plan ahead, and I'd encourage families to go green this Christmas and recycle as much as possible. Wrapping, packaging, card and many plastics can be recycled in the green bin. Hence, the schedules have been sent out, the public notified, and as an employer, our duty of care to our staff during the Christmas period requires us to offer holidays so that they too can spend time with their families. Bin collections continue as normal up to Christmas Eve, December 24th, with a break over Christmas and New Year. Collections restart as normal from January the 2nd. This gap in service is due to 3 bank holidays falling within what would be the 5 working days in between. The revised schedule we have put together is designed to be as simple as possible and get residents back to their normal collection scheduled as soon as possible. It also recognises the well-being of our staff at this time of the year. In addition, both Christmas Day and New Year's Day fall on Tuesday this year, so our crews have volunteered to work on Friday, 4th of January, to provide a collection on what is not their normal working day. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mather. Supplementary?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, supplementary. Just for the benefit of the resident in question, who I suspect is actually watching on the webcam, can you just confirm for him, therefore, that you consider that it is acceptable that there should be no black bin collection in Upper Cumberworth between the 11th of December until the 4th of January, and you think that's Kirklees Labour Council delivering a good service?
Councillor Mather, please.
Let me make it clear that the service we operate in Kirklees, not Wakefield, not Calderdale, not Leeds, is a fortnightly bin collection. So your residents, along with every resident in Kirklees, will get a very responsive service, as I've outlined, and please go on the website if you don't know where the information is. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mather. Councillor Ida, are you all right with the response that you can? Do you want a supplementary? Councillor Iredale, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. A supplementary is to Councillor McBride. Has there been any applications for a market stall coming up to this Christmas period?
I don't know, Christine, but I will try and find out and I'll get you the information. Okay.
Thank you. Question by Councillor Eastwood to the Cabinet Member for Economy, Councillor McBride. Councillor Eastwood, please.
Right, okay. Yeah, I'd like to ask, why is the free parking on Saturdays in Huddersfield in the lead up to Christmas restricted to after 2 o'clock only? Thank you.
Councillor McBride, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The concession we make to traders is a bonus to retailers at Christmas. It used to be in the evenings. Now we've transferred this to Saturdays because of the evidence of footfall across the week suggests that this is the weakest point in terms of footfall. Additionally, we've talked to the retailers and they prefer this. The reason we don't extend it to all day Saturday and elsewhere is because once upon a time in 2010 we got we got a joint Tory and Liberal government who imposed unprecedented austerity on local authorities in the north, halving the government's funding and telling them to live off their own sources of funding. But things might be different shortly. We wait for an announcement at 9 o'clock tonight.
Thank you, Councillor McBride. Councillor Eastwood, do you have a supplementary?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I appreciate that something is better than nothing. However, you only have to look at nearby councils who have gone the full hog for a whole day, not just for 3 Saturdays, but as far back as November. So what would it have cost Kirklees Council to have actually implemented a similar regime across their car park? Thank you.
Councillor McBride, please.
I'll let you know.
Thank you. Question by Councillor Eastwood to the Cabinet Member for Communities and Environment, Councillor Mather. Councillor Eastwood, please.
Okay, yeah. What is the council doing to promote domestic recycling efficiency at the moment?
Thank you. Councillor Mather.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As you know, I've stood in this council chamber and said I'm deeply passionate about recycling. Currently, we employ 5 members of staff as waste advisors who work directly with residents across the district in bin collection teams. We deliver a targeted recycling education message to residents as crews or the disposal contractor report contamination in green bins, for example. Advisors respond quickly through direct, targeted conversations with our residents. They inform the residents of what items should be placed in the green bin, therefore maximising the collection service for the resident across both bins. They also regularly work with schools and communities to promote recycling, reuse and waste contamination, particularly food waste. And if you know anybody who wants to know a bit more in your communities, in your localities, your resident groups, schools, please let me know and we will make sure that the educative aspects of recycling takes place. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mather. Supplementary, Councillor Eastwood.
Right, thanks for that. It's, obviously, the results for Kirklees have not been too great in previous years. We've been in the bottom 15% of National League tables. Yet, nearby Calderdale has been in the top 15%. What I would like to know is, have you actually consulted with Calderdale to see what they're getting right and where they're getting wrong? Thank you.
Councillor Mather, please.
It's true. We should be recycling more. We are trying to get there. We are looking at measures where we are recycling, which we can't count currently is counted. It's the way you count is being counted in Wales. We have spoken to our adjoining authorities. Calderdale has a current, more up-to-date new contract which costs a lot more than ours. So we are, whilst we wait to renew our contract going forward, we're also waiting the publication of the National Resource and Waste Strategy, which was due out by government in 2016, in order to fully understand any statutory changes on the horizon as we move forward. And some of the things that we could actually be looking forward to in terms of more recycling is costs, incineration tax, financial penalties, mandatory collection of food waste, and changes to the definition of waste. So basically, all of us have to work together to make sure that our recycling rates go up. And as we move forward and think of alternative ways of recycling and renewing our fleet and other initiatives, we will hopefully hit the target of 50%. And I agree with you, Councillor Eastwood, it's not good enough currently.
Thank you, Councillor Mather. Question by Councillor Burke to the Leader of the Council, Councillor Pandor. Councillor Burke, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Could you provide an update on the Council's £5 million regeneration master plan for Huddersfield Town Centre?
Councillor Pandor.
Thank you, Councillor Calbeck. Yes, I can. We've engaged consultants to develop the master plan, a company called ACOM. By the start of the new year, we will get the details back. What we've been doing, we've been engaging with a range of stakeholders to actually develop the details. We've talked to businesses, we've had workshops, and we've captured every single view. So, a couple of months, and we'll get the details of the master plan back here. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pandor. Supplementary, Councillor Burke.
Thank you. Whilst I may not agree with some of the surveys that have been published recently regarding Huddersfield Town Centre, I do think there's parts of the town centre which could do with some urgent repairs and refurbishment and made to look a little better than it does. And I would be talking particularly about New Street. If we look around New Street, we see some of what were, I believe, flower beds, which now look like tombs, which are used for, well, I don't know, sitting on or putting waste on, and a lot of broken flagstones and uneven surfaces. So I think this would require some urgent attention.
Councillor Pandor.
Yeah, thank you. There is some work that's taking place already. I don't know if you've noticed it. There's a £2.5 million investment programme that's actually undergoing at the moment. We're doing some public realm work, road repairs, looking at open spaces, pavements. Also, there's some public realm works that's taking place on New Street, Cross Church Street and Queensgate. So there is stuff already going on. That's in the pipeline. You just got to walk around our town centre and you'll see. But yes, I can't wait for the master plan to come here, and then we can actually start to do some big stuff along with everything else that we're doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pandor. Question by Councillor Burke to the Cabinet Member for Health and Social Care, Councillor Khan. Councillor Burke, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. How are our plans for a new hospital in Kirklees affected by the recent announcement that the Health Secretary has made a decision on Huddersfield Royal Infirmary and that Calderdale and Huddersfield Trust will be given £197 million to go ahead with their Plan B?
Councillor Khan, please.
Thank you.
It is very disappointing that despite full cross-party support for our plan, the Secretary of State has not taken our case on board or listened to the people of Huddersfield who have campaigned hard and long for our A&E services. I absolutely remain of the view that a long-term plan for Kirklees is required, and that includes the provision of A&E service. This investment should not change the Council's position, particularly as the revised proposals do not provide for a proper A&E in Kirklees. And I'd like to thank colleagues for the work that they've been doing behind the scenes as well.
Thank you, Councillor Khan. Supplementary, Councillor Burke?
Thank you. So you would agree that we need a fully functional A&E and services in Huddersfield and in Kirklees. Can you outline a bit more detail about the finances around a proposal for a new hospital and also a site?
Now that we have an answer, we need to get round the table cross-party again and work out our next steps.
Thank you, Councillor Khan. That concludes the questions. Item 12, page 169. The minutes of meetings of the Cabinet are here for information to note. Item 13, holding the Executive to account. For Part A of this item, Council will receive portfolio updates from the portfolio holders for Housing and Democracy and Corporate Services. Oral questions and comments to Cabinet members on their portfolios and on relevant Cabinet minutes will be at Part B. Can I now invite Councillors Scott and Turner to present their portfolio updates? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Members, I remind you, back in May 2017, we brought a draft proposal about local democracy, and then we agreed it in Council in November 2017, and we set up a cross-party working group. So today I'm here to talk to you about the things that we have done so far, and hopefully it'll give you a bit of insight. I appreciate the time. I'll try and get through as much as possible to you, but I do urge you to visit the democracy site. It does have all the information there for you. So one of the items that we did look at was the changing role of a councillor, and it was about what the working group did commission 2 pieces of work as part of this project. So the first piece was the role of the Kirklees councillor. This has involved working in workshops and a cross-section of middle managers to begin and understand the changing role from the officer's perspective. Further sessions will be taking place on that with citizens and councillors, and the outcomes of that work will result in the production of a new role profile for a Kirklees councillor. So there'll be a bit more clarity around it. So the second part was how the councillor should be supported better carrying out their ward roles. So far this has involved a number of ward-based conversations which are ongoing, and we're also looking at practices from other authorities, just so we're not reinventing the wheel. There might be something there that we can pick up from that. The outcome of this work will inform the redesign on how we support councillors moving forward, and Councillor John Taylor and myself are leading on this piece of work and on behalf of the working group. So then we were looking at developing the citizens' engagement and the framework for the place-based working. This is a crucial activity for citizens as a strategic priority. It's involved in agreeing a framework for citizens' engagement whereby the Council will move away from its traditional approaches to consultation towards a genuine engagement dialogue with citizens based in the local authority, and where they can identify their local places, where they live, where they work and where they visit. The working group has linked this with the Council's wider developing approach to a place-based working and has endorsed the use of a tool called place-based standard. This principal method is about carrying out place-based engagement, and that's how we're going to be moving forward. I'm hoping that most of the councillors in this chamber have actually received that booklet on that. It's very informative, and I have to congratulate the Golk Award. That was one of the pilot areas that actually tested it for us, so I'd like to say thank you to them. So putting the councillor at the heart of the organisation, this has been an important theme that we've run through, and much of the Commission's findings related to the importance of officers and councillors working together effectively. And to that extent, which we needed to improve relationships, and that was quite significantly identified. So work has taken place via officers and councillor workshops to understand the current situation and make practical recommendations to develop a shared understanding of each other's roles and create more opportunities for officers, and that means officers at all levels. It's not just senior level, all levels, and councillors, so that we can all work together. So improving the electoral registration. The working group has commissioned work intended to be proactive and positive with the electoral registration. We're working together with Huddersfield University so that when students are registering, it could be an opportunity for electoral registration at the same time. We're waiting on the outcome and the evaluation of that, so we'll keep you posted on that. The networked councillor. This was about the digital skills and confidence, and also the content for the civic good. An important part of the Commission's work involved looking at opportunities for the local democracy to be digital, but we do understand that not everybody's digital, so we have to find a format that fits everybody. The working group agreed a project of proposals, and there were 4 phases of that. One was the understanding what we need and when we'll need it, and so we're going to be exploring things in that area. We'll be working with citizens to develop a democratic content to involve bringing people together. We'll be piloting different learning and collaborating with others. Activities will be focused on to involve informal learning, peer-to-peer learning and network where possible, and a number of practical pilots will be developed in response to identifying the needs. We'll be creating tools and approaches that will involve learning from initial research and ongoing work with citizens so that we can introduce pilots and develop useful tools and approaches. These products will include content guidelines and also about social media and all the... We need to carry out audits around that and what learning opportunities are out there for councillors. Councillor Cooper and Councillor Walker will be leading on this piece of work, and they'll be working on behalf of the working group. I'll then move on to regional devolution. Supporting our councillors and citizens, the working group has commissioned work that is intended to provide information and support that's intended to improve the understanding and engagement of both councillors, citizens in the wider workplace and things that are taking place in the region. This work will include the development of a number of communications and briefing arrangements, and it's about us engaging and taking up that opportunity. So there'll be information flow that would be coming from places like WIPA, which is the West Yorkshire Combined Authority, sharing it in a way that's more timely and engaging. It's not after the fact. We need to know before, you know, what the timescales of things that are happening. So moving on. So opening up our meetings, this has been a crucial part of work, and to improve the democratic content. Officers have begun some focused work around opening up our meetings, which will continue throughout the year. In addition to this work, the working group has commissioned work to respond to citizens who have said, we don't know how to get involved, we don't understand how things work. With that in mind, the group is breaking down the barriers there. We're giving them bite-sized, right-sized information, and the content of that is being developed in helping citizens to understand meetings, how things work, what happens, and how to get involved. It's about sharing experiences of councillors, citizens and staff, and explaining issues of what decisions we're making and why we're making them decisions. Because we captured information where people thought we were making a decision on the day. Quite often the reports that come forward to Cabinet, that's just one instant, it could be 18 months worth of work. It's not a decision on the day. So it's crucial that people understood the rules and how things were conducted. The initial work has involved looking at the format of a council meeting from the perspective of a citizen. We are testing out approaches to explain the elements of what happens in council meetings. This has begun already. You'll have already identified Spencer Wilson. If you go to the democracy side, he introduces it and tells you what happens in the council, the format of how things are run and what's happening on the agenda. So finally, on this presentation, I'd like to take the opportunity to thank Carl Whistlecraft, Diane Sims and Spencer Wilson for the tireless work that they've done, and also the team, because without their work, we wouldn't have been here to be able to do this. I'd also like to give recognition to Councillor David Sheard, Councillor John Taylor, Councillor John Lawson, Councillor Andrew Cooper and Councillor Rob Walker and Robert Light. Without them giving their time, and I mean we've given a lot of time to this, we wouldn't have been able to carry this out. And I'd also like to say that we've enjoyed the engagement with local people. We'd like more local people to be involved. But remember, democracy doesn't start just in this chamber. It's people and communities that matter. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Scott. Councillor Turner, please.
Madam Mayor, thank you. I didn't think we were going to get there, so here we go. So, members, the corporate portfolio covers a huge amount of services. The one we are most familiar with is the Council's finances and the Council's budget. But as I report frequently on this, I'm not going to talk about this tonight, as I want to cover some of the many other things I work on that members may not be as well aware of. So given the time, this will be a quick canter through parts of the corporate portfolio. So in people services, or what we used to call HR, we have a 3-year people strategy that focuses on talent, attraction, development and well-being. As part of this, we are putting staff well-being at the heart of what we do, focusing on early intervention and prevention, on keeping staff healthy, well and motivated through a proactive employee healthcare offer. We have a fantastic employee healthcare unit, and would like to see those of our staff that have health issues make much more use of this. Attending is confidential and carries absolutely no stigma. Stress and mental health issues are not something that will go away, and the earlier they can be dealt with will deliver a better outcome. I want our staff to be healthy as long as possible, healthy as possible for as long as possible. We're also focusing on attracting the right people into our jobs. We are doing outreach work with communities and investing in apprenticeships, attracting new apprentices into the council and developing existing staff. We heard earlier we have an ageing workforce, and it's right that we start to invest more and more in our apprenticeship. Having as large a group of apprenticeships as we can is important to us as a council, as we know that our apprentices will receive the best training available and will finish their time as an apprentice with a nationally recognised qualification. Drawing our own, providing jobs to our residents through the apprentice scheme is the right thing to do. A well-qualified, well-trained staff is vital to the future success of the council. We are looking at ways of making our apprenticeship offer better and much more attractive. More information on this will be forthcoming in the next few months. We are modernising our approach to employee relations, and have been working collaboratively with our trade union colleagues for some time now to develop a new framework that is clear, it's transparent, and one which will support a positive and engaging relationship going forward. It is so that we can sign this new agreement in the very near future. So, moving on to IT and technology. Technology, we all know, plays an ever-increasing role in all our lives, in council operations and the way we interact with residents, and therefore we must continually invest in new technology and find new and innovative ways to use technology that not only benefits the council, but our people as well. We must not leave the people behind. Does anybody know the result? Because everybody seems to be checking. No? If anything more exciting, just let me know. I'll stop. I watch football instead. In new technology, and find new. In a little over a year, we have had approaching 90,000 people signed up to our citizens' account, giving them access to many services by simply clicking onto their account. This number will only grow as we add more and more services to the My Kirklees account. I strongly believe that this service will become the place to go, to not only interact with the council, but to access all things Kirklees. Sound signals now. We are one of the first local authorities in the country to use natural language and Alexa to deliver fully integrated bin collection services, giving residents new ways of interacting with the council that can make their digital experience much better today and in the future. This type of voice-activated technology is in its infancy, and the potential for growth and delivering services is enormous. And I'm very pleased that we are at the forefront of this exciting new technology. Back in September, we rolled out the new liquid logic system for children's services. And as we well know, the system in children's services is really ready for replacing. The rollout of the new system, whilst fraught with significant challenging issues, was delivered without significant disruption. Now, major IT changes of this type are often seen in the press as, shall we say, not going to plan, taking some companies to the brink. So it's a credit to our IT and children's service teams that the new system worked so well from its implementation. As part of our mobile and agile programme, we now have Office 365 mailbox migration across 6,500 accounts. The rollout of Windows 10 devices has reached around half the estate. We are currently digesting the report that was prepared for us recently by Deloitte, and that will help us develop our digital by design offer, not only to the public, but our staff and elected members as well. Cyber security plays an important role in the Council and will continue to go up the ladder of importance, as we get about 1 million attacks every week. These range from the geek in their bedroom to national governments. So to ensure we protect our systems and the sensitive information we hold, we should have a new cyber security in place later this month, or if not, early next year. Finally, I will just have to mention the members' account. Now, I know this has been a point of frustration for some members, and one of them has already left the building. But I've just started to use the latest version, and so far I have found it to be fine and easy enough to use. However, I will have a better idea of how good it is once I have used it some more. On this, we have been approached by some of the local authorities who are keen to look at it with a view to using it themselves. So perhaps the improvements we have made have resolved the issues found by the early adopters. The work being done by our office and the creative team is very varied and is genuinely exciting. The small but very effective team that work in the creative economy are working hard in delivering innovative projects to drive the local creative and cultural economy. A strong cultural offer benefits us all. It drives footfall to our local businesses. It makes us a more attractive place for those who may wish to relocate here. And it provides our residents with entertainment. Now, my own cultural passion is music, and I'm committed to making Kirklees even more famous for its musical offer. Music is the cultural DNA of Kirklees, and we have the opportunity to grow our offer even more. We have world-renowned events such as the HCMF, which attracts an international audience and fills all our hotels with visitors from around the globe. The Choral Society is world-renowned. We host the Great Northern Ukulele Festival. We have had national brass band events here. We have folk festivals, jazz festivals, the Mrs Sunderland competition, a musica, where young people go to learn and study music and become the next generation of musicians. We work with our partners, Opera North, on varied and different ways to bring music to the people, to the public. The list goes on and on and on. And for those of us of a certain age, we were the time where the Sex Pistols played their last ever British gig. It's a wide and varied offer, and by working with more and more partners, we can diversify the offer even more and attract many new audiences to Kirklees. As part of this commitment to music in Kirklees, £300,000 funding was approved from the Business Rates Pool, which is supporting the kick-starting of the programme and planning towards a year of music in 2023. This will complement Leeds' plans for a year of culture. A number of commissions have been agreed with our partners to develop the marketing and branding of music in Kirklees. This will provide support to musicians, music business, and develop new curators. And by using our places, working with our partners and our people on some of the other exciting plans, we will make Kirklees the place for music. Planning is also underway to deliver a new Kirklees-wide festival in June 2019, which will be a creative response to the textile industry. Textiles are why we are here. It's what built Kirklees. We aim to involve community across Kirklees and raise our profile regionally and nationally. Partnerships and the festive team are presently being established. However, this will not be a festival dwelling on our past. It's about the future, where we are now, and how we can continue to be at the forefront of new technology, new designs, new ideas. We can't deliver the scale of our ambition on our own, and we'll be working with many partners in delivering the Kirklees wide event. I've seen you flashing. Of course, I can't close without talking about the library service. You'd be disappointed if I did, wouldn't you? We are working hard on the library service redesign, following the Cabinet report in August. The key points of the work we have done so far are we are currently preparing a tender application for the proposed delivery of the home library service by the voluntary sector. We are piloting new ways of working in Meltham. Staff from Huddersfield Central Library are working with volunteers to upskill them. The volunteers are aiming to start working without staff support for 1 day a week in the new year. We are engaging with the public in Amber about the potential move of the library to the purpose-built Library and Children's Centre. The library staff will commence a series of training sessions in the new year to better equip them to be mobile and agile and support volunteers. But let me be very clear, I, for this Cabinet and our officers, fully understand how important libraries are to our communities, as we know they all deliver so much more than just lending books. But we must ensure that we deliver these services from the right place. They must be at the very heart of our communities, accessible and on one floor. Whilst other councils continue to close and downgrade libraries, we are investing, looking at being innovative. We will continue to work hard to deliver the best service we can by working with partners such as the Community Plus teams who are working on libraries alongside library staff and the volunteers to help deliver the council's outcomes. We will continue to develop our relationship with friends groups and the great volunteers we have working alongside our offices. These partnerships are vital in delivering the service we want for our people, and I'm sure as time goes by we will strengthen those partnerships and continue to develop more and more partnership working. And finally, yet more good news is for all this one, I've agreed with the relevant director that we will abolish library fines, and the last day for fines will be the 29th of December. This is a very positive step and removes a barrier for our volunteers. We are one of the first councils in the country to be doing this, and it is part of our commitment to supporting the most vulnerable in our communities who are among the most who benefit worst from our library services but are least able to afford fines. We want to make our volunteers' lives as easy as possible, and by removing the need for them to ask residents for money has to be a positive step in helping the very positive relationship we have with our fantastic volunteers. Finally, I would just like to say that none of this work could happen if it was not for the hard work and commitment of the officers. And I would like to thank them all, as well along with yourselves, and wish you all a very happy Christmas and a very happy New Year. Madam Mayor, thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Turner. As it's the season of goodwill to all men, and I'm so pleased that you have been, and women, sorry, to all peoples. Can I just say thank you for an excellent meeting? You've all been extremely well behaved. So as you've been extremely well behaved, I'm going to let you go early. So thank you so much. Can I just wish you all an excellent, happy Christmas and a safe New Year? Thank you.